Well, if this is the end of the summer, it sure ended on a sour note. The remake of The Crow, an iconic 90s movie, hit theaters this week, not that you would have noticed it that much. Marketing for this film has been scarce, reviews were embargoed by the studio until the day of release, the trailer was mocked when it premiered about 6 months ago. Now, being a fan of the original Crow myself, I was very skeptical about being able to remake this story and achieve the impact and cultural significance of the original. I wanted to be fair though. I refused to compare the original with this remake right off the bat. I was determined to watch this new offering with unbiased eyes. And as hard as that was, believe me, I was able to do so. It did not hurt that the only two other people in the theater with me were family members who've never seen the original, and I could use them as a litmus test for any cynicism I may have brought with me. But as I sat down in an otherwise empty theater to view this first showing of this new Crow film, I got a sinking feeling in my stomach that this was not going to go well. Forget about the 90s original. You do not need to have seen that film in order to pick this one apart. Look, plain and simple, this movie is a mess. The narrative was all over the place. The main characters of Eric and Shelley were not relatable in almost every way. There was nothing in the way of character development to give you any sense of empathy or caring for these two individuals. When they are attacked and meet their ultimate fate, you don't feel anything. They both seem so unredeemable even before they get in way over their head. The writing was sophomoric, just god-awful dialogue that was full of cheese and cringe. When the story needed to move slowly to build something up in the way of tension or conflict or pose moral questions, it moved way too fast. When the story needed to be a quicker pace, it slogged on. Now, even though I'm criticizing the writing, the thing that needs the most criticism is the editing. The timeline in the film, which is presented first as a linear narrative, does not adhere to linear rules. There are scenes that seem out of place. At times, you don't know if you're in the past, the present, if you're looking into the future. You just don't know. And as an audience member, it just confuses you. There's a lot left up to you as an audience member to figure out, which is fine to a point, but this film relies too much on audience knowledge of the source material for non-Crow fans to keep up with. Since I was the only knowledgeable Crow fan in our trio, I spent a lot of time answering questions and explaining things to my group. Not a good sign of a well-told story. And what we did get in terms of plot just seemed forced. It never seemed organic. The villain, played by Danny Houston, was not fleshed out. He was a flat character with a thin backstory that took all of 3 lines of dialogue to explain. You knew he was evil, you knew he was in league with dark spiritual forces, you knew why he was doing what he was doing, but his motivation, how he came to be, what he did to get to where he is, none of that is there. I said it before, a great hero is only as good as his nemesis. If you do not have a villain who is believable, who seems to pose a real threat and danger to the protagonist, then you really don't have a compelling conflict. At no time do you think that Eric is in any real danger, and it makes the progression of that conflict completely boring, predictable, and in my opinion, lazy. And if the main conflict of your story is not gripping for the audience in some fashion, you really don't have anything. You just have pieces of an unfinished whole. And that's the best way I could describe this film. And when the director tries to put all these pieces together, they just don't fit. Now, a lot of what people were hoping for in this remake were great visuals, and there were a lot of them. The aesthetics of the environments were gritty and dark, the over-the-top blood and guts violence was choreographed very well, but the times when CGI was needed to enhance or create something ethereal or otherworldly, that work fell short. It was not terrible, but it was inconsistent, and a lot of it seemed unfinished, and surprisingly, some of it came off as blurry. And speaking of visuals, the one place we have to compare the original to this remake is with Eric himself. Brandon Lee's look is etched into the fabric of pop culture. It is perfectly executed. So much care going into that look. Brandon Lee even applying his own makeup at night before going to bed, so when he woke up to film the next day, he would have that weathered look to his face. In this remake, first off, whoever made the choice to give Eric the greasy mullet should be fired. It looked terrible, laughable even. Covering him in tattoos was maybe a good idea on paper, but it did not translate well on screen. It just didn't look good, especially since he spends the second half of the film covered in blood. And all the while, all I could think of when he was on screen was Jared Leto's Joker from Suicide Squad. It didn't work then, and this Joker version of The Crow does not work here. As you can probably already tell, I did not like this movie for a number of reasons. I suspect the studios think you won't like it either because they haven't spent a lot of money promoting it, and they embargoed the reviews until the last minute, never a vote of confidence or sign of faith in their own product. This is a bad film. The acting is corny. The plot is almost non-existent. The pacing is exhaustingly slow for most of the film. The writing is absent of anything involving tension or character development. The mythology of The Crow is shoehorned in and feels like something put together at the last minute. It tries to be edgy and hip, but all it achieves is sloppy and muddled. This is as poor of a remake or reboot of any intellectual property I've seen in a long, long time. Should you see this film? No, do yourself a favor and don't waste your time or money on it. Whether you're a fan of the original or new to The Crow as a character, this film will disappoint you. And one last thing, the music. I know I said I would not compare the two, but this is one of those things that need exception. The original is known for its soundtrack, how it used music of the time to augment the action on screen. This film tries to do the same, but again, it is done with sloppiness. It can't pick a genre of music to stick to. One scene will have a punk rock song, another an emo love song, another classical opera. It is the very definition of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Problem is, nothing sticks, and it only adds to the schizophrenic nature that infects every other aspect of this production. And I know I may get a lot of arguments on this last point, but here it is. Out of every movie that I've seen during this summer of 2024, The Crow is the worst of them. And along with Argyle, Madam Web, and Captain Marvel, it's one of the worst movies released this whole year. And that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have you seen this film and what did you think? And if you want more movie reviews and commentary, click on the links in the description for my general movie review playlist and my retro movie review playlist. As well, if you like this video, consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and sharing it out. It really helps us out each week. As always, I thank you for watching, and remember, I'm still your reluctant gringo from south of the border. Salud and a huevo.